welcome back to another video of the Federal Focus. Today we have a solid amount to talk about, including but not only the Florida primary, which in my opinion was very, very fun to watch. But first, let's talk about over some presidential news. I know, crazy. It's already 2026. Presidential election is 2 and 3 months, years from now. So Pete Buttigieg, who may run for president, may not, visited South Carolina, which is pretty much the early stages in the primaries, basically the first state, or at least it may be. We don't really know. They didn't release the schedule yet. But if you visit South Carolina and you may run for president, it kind of tells a lot that you may actually run for president, which he did in 2020. It was really very surprising that he got so far, considering he was just a mayor of a small town. He finished 5th in 2020. So he may run. The funny thing is, in a lot of these polls, he literally has 0% black support, which is kind of hard to do. I mean, like George Wallace, when he ran for governor, he had 93% of African Americans support him. So the fact that you have 0% is kind of saying a lot, and I'm not lying about the statistic, but that was just an early thing to say. Let's move on to the Florida news. And yes, I know this is really the last big primary day. There is primaries in the New England states, which in Massachusetts, a senator could be primary, but this is pretty much the last of it. The primary season went from February to August. It's really long. I think they should just cut it down to 3 months, but states like to be weird and whatever. So let's start off with the big one, the Florida governor primary. I know I went over with this and how weird the polls were, and it turned out the polls were actually fine, except for the one specific pollster, the Public Sentiment Institute. As I said before, they were a Groper pollster, and I was absolutely right. Now, I don't mean to say it, but I was completely spot on with that one, and so was probably 90% of people. It was so obvious they were a fake pollster. Their polls showed him at around 34% support. It wasn't even frankly close. Okay? So, yeah, this is a poll. This is for people who were in contact with other people, and it showed Fishback winning. And let's just say, as you can see with these results, he did not win. All right, he started off the day. I'm not even lying. He started off below Paul Riener and in 4th place. He was in 4th place for around half of the day. It was amazing. It was fantastic to watch because I do not want him to win because, frankly, he's annoying and other reasons as he's extremely racist. And he ended up only getting 10%. Now, he did notably win some college towns, but college is in session, so I'm not sure how good marker that is of his success with young people. I know that he did do better with young people, but Brian Donalds won with every age group. So, sorry, that's my guitar. I have it on me because I'm bored. But as you can see, he went pretty much everywhere. And actually, this area, it's not Jay Collins' district. He's the Attorney General. It's basically because the reason why he won that is because Northern Florida is extremely conservative. And I think, in my opinion, they just saw someone named Brian Donaldson. He's African American. They decided not to vote for him. I'm not saying they're racist, but it's just very funny how that's the area which did not vote for him. It's literally the only area. I mean, he even won Miami Beach, which Miami did, which I thought they would do better for Fishback, considering he's half Colombian, and he's and he's notoriously racist, and he's half Colombian, which I've noticed that happens a lot. But yeah. So this was very fun to watch. I would say the Democratic Florida wasn't really in contention. In my opinion, I don't think this will be the 20-point victory that DeSantis won, but to say the least, I would be absolutely stunned if Republicans don't win in Florida. It is so far gone from Democrats nowadays, which is gone to show in the U.S. Senate election, where Angie Nixon, a Democratic socialist in Florida, keep in mind, won their primary. Now, this is basically the death blow for them. Considering this is a state which is a large percent Cuban, Venezuelan, Colombian. All right, she's a Democratic socialist. The ads against her by Moody is going to be crazy. Moody may win by a margin higher than DeSantis, which is 20 points. Now, I don't think that will happen, but this is certainly going to help with the redistricting for Republicans, as they did the redistricting to gain a couple of House seats, this will certainly help. And this was a huge upset. She got outspent, I believe, 10-1. Vindman is actually a resist liberal, which if you don't know what that means, you can look it up. He actually, I believe, chaired on the first Trump impeachment. He was a top witness, so it's very interesting. So yeah, but if you think we're done with Florida, we're not. We have a couple more House primaries to go over. Now, Randy Fine, he's very controversial to say the least. All right, he got primary. Now you say, "Oh, that's good. I don't want to vote for him." He got primary by a neo-Nazi and another far right man. So Dan Pulizarian, you may know him. He's the famous Instagram guy who faked basically everything. He got around 18%, and then he claimed fraud because early on there was a reporting error which showed him kind of tied with Fine. It was pretty obvious to everyone that it was not real, but he claimed fraud. But it's still concerning to say the least that neo-Nazi got 18% of the vote. He got 16%, 16,000 votes. Now, I think if there was a normal person running in this district, Fine would have lost easily. But they decided, no, let's just run a neo-Nazi. What can go wrong? Because he actually didn't do that well. But, yeah. And one which is the Democratic primary. This was the most interesting Democratic primary of the night. Jared Moskowitz, he actually represents a very Trump-leaning district. I believe Trump won by around 10 points. The PVI on it is like +5 for Republicans or something. And he was a moderate Democrat, as you may expect, considering he's in a Trump-won district. However, for some reason, Oliver Walker decided, let me lose this district for Democrats. So he tried to primary him. It almost worked, but it's very interesting how Jared Moskowitz only got 63% of the vote. But this was actually kind of a big upset. A lot of people were expecting Moskowitz to only win by a couple points. He ended up winning by 15. I think this is because of strategic voting, where they realized, listen, I may be left wing. I may not like Jared Moskowitz, but if I don't vote for him, a Republican's going to win. So they decide it was really the only chance to win the district. It's in Miami. So it probably wouldn't have been a great idea to have a Democratic Socialist down in majority Hispanic district. And it's also a very Jewish district. I don't know if it's a majority Hispanic, but I know it's very Hispanic, and I believe it's the most Jewish district in America. You may be surprised, but there is a lot of Jews who live in the Miami area, even more than New York. But obviously, New York City is much bigger than Miami, so people hear about New York City more. Also, New York City is very localized with their Jewish population. Like, you have a lot of Hasidics who live in one specific area where it's 99% Hasidic. And it's interesting to check the precinct map because that area is like 95% Trump in a sea of blue. And the last thing I have to go over, I don't know if I went over this already, but this is getting to be a big, big problem, all right? The polling industry sucks, okay? I know I said this before, but this is horrible, all right? There was an Arkansas poll from this random college, all right? And it showed a Democrat up in Arkansas. I know this is likely to be a belief, but if a Democrat wins in Arkansas, they would win 65 Senate seats nationwide. It ain't happening. All right, we have to fix the polling industry. There has been a wave of Democrat internal polls. Okay, Josh Shapiro was saying they're going to win a Trump plus 40 district. Okay, people need to lower their expectations. Okay, a blue wave does not mean you're going to win Arkansas. A red wave doesn't mean you're going to win fucking California. But that's going to be all for today. Yeah, we have to nuke the polling industry.